Okay, Masechet Shekalim, Daf Yod. Starting with the Mishnah, we're going to discuss all the things that we use the different monies for. So, Hatiruma, Mehayu Osin Ba. The Tiruma means the withdrawal that you put in the 2-gallon baskets. Right? Those 3 baskets that you withdraw. What do you use those monies for? And so lokhin bat temidin u'misafin v'niskehen. So the korban temid for every day, musaf for Shabbat, Rosh Chodesh, Yom Tov, and all the wine libations that go along with them. Also, Omer u'shteh halechem ve'lechem hapanim. B'chol kol benot hasibur. Also the meal offerings for the Omer that we bring on Pesach, Shelechem that we bring on Shavuot, lechem hapanim, the 12 loaves that we bring every Shabbat. Those all are bought with that money, and all other communal offerings throughout the year, which the Mishnah will get to. Now, regarding the meal offerings, on the Shavuot year, you still have to go and cut the barley and the wheat, even though it's Shavuot. So they would have guards that would, some plot of land, they would guard there and say, if anyone comes to try to take it, they say, no, please don't take it. This is for the Bet HaMikdash service. People would stay away. So now those guards have to be paid. So how do you pay them? They also get paid from those 3 baskets. The Yose says if someone wants to, they can volunteer their time to be a guard, right? And then they'll make sure no one comes, and then whatever they guard will go to the Bet HaMikdash. That's the Yose, the tanna. Amru lo afata Omer she'en ba'in ela mishel sibur. No, that's not a good idea, because it has to come from the public funds. If you have an individual guarding it, well, then it's like his. Right? So if he decides he wants to give it, rabbis say no. So this is the first major machloket. Here's a little bit of an outline. Can an individual donate to communal offerings? The Yose, the Tanna, says yes. Just like a single guard can guard an area and not get paid, and yet give over whatever he's guarding. Sages, and we'll see in the Gemara, another Rabbi Yose, a little confusing, Rabbi Yose and Amora says, no, an individual cannot donate to communal offerings if it's talking about the animal or the flower itself, only for incidental materials like the wood. Okay, that's what the Gemara will focus on here. All right. All right, so in order to challenge this whole idea of the sages, actually, that an individual cannot bring something, we're going to go to Masechet Ta'anit. Masechet Ta'anit talks about the wood offerings, that there were a bunch of families that would donate wood to the Bet HaMikdash. That was one of the biggest expenses, because you needed wood to keep on the Mizbeach all the time. So there were families that would give every year, at a certain time of the year, they would send in their donation of wood. And the Baraita expands on the Mishnah in Ta'anit. Right? They in the time of the beginning of the second Bet HaMikdash, they came and they built the second Bet HaMikdash, and there was no or Ezra Nehemiah, when they came, they found the Bet HaMikdash was there, but there was no wood in the chamber. So Ezra and Nehemiah, they said, okay, everybody have to bring wood all the time. So these few families that are listed in the Mishnah and Ta'anit, they came and they donated from their own wood, and they gave it to the community. So you see here, you are allowed to give an individual and give from his own private stock to the communal funds, and you can use them for the korbanot sibur. The prophets then were so grateful to them that they said, listen, every year all the way into the future, even if in the future there's plenty of wood, because from the communal funds, if you come and you donate every year, we will use your wood first, give you the zechut, that merit, because you helped out when there was a time of need. So forevermore, we will be grateful to you. Okay, that's what the Baraita says. So you see here, seems to be a challenge to the sages. It must be that this whole Baraita and the Mishnah that goes along with it must be only the opinion of Rabbi Yose, that an individual can give to the communal funds and it will be used for a communal sacrifice. But the sages would not agree to this, right? Because they say a single watchman has to be paid, otherwise it's his own, and an individual cannot donate to a community. So that's Rabbi Acha. However, because Rabbi Yose said, right, someone who wants to donate their time can be a personal guard and then can give it. So you can donate personal things. Rabbi Yose b'shem Rabbi Ilah. This is Rabbi Yose now, the amora, who's going to defend the sages. So that's why Rabbi Yose, in the name of Rabbi Ilah, follows the sages and says, Dibrei hakolhi. This Mishnah and Ta'anit can be everyone's opinion. הפליגין בגופו של קורבן. אבל במכשירי קורבן, כל אמר מודה שהוא משתנה, קורבן יחיד לקורבן ציבור. So what the machloket in the Mishnah is only regarding the actual sacrifice. If it was a private animal, I can't take a private animal and say, I want to donate this to be tamid. According to the Chachamim, you can't do that. You can donate money, and then with that machazit shekel, they'll buy it. However, the machshireh, things that are incidental to it, like the wood, I'm not sacrificing the actual wood, that everyone agrees that an individual can donate wood, and you can use that to burn the korban tamid. Okay, the Mishnah was actually talking about the flour, but flour also is sacrificed, right? Put a handful on the mizbeach itself. So that has to be bought by the Bet HaMikdash. So in the Shavit year, they would have to pay the watchman to do that. Okay, second case that's similar to the first, similar discussion. Tanna, Isha she'asta ketonet libna kishera v'ban shetimserena lasibor. If a woman sews a tunic for her son who's going to be a kohen, like Hannah does for Shemuel, right? So she's taking her personal material and the personal time and donating it to the Bet HaMikdash, and it's going to be now used for all the communal sacrifices that kohen does. It's okay as long as she does donate it. She can't keep it for her own property. So you see here, this seems to follow Rabbi Yose, and that's what Rabbi Acha says. Amar Rabbi Acha, Rabbi Yose Rabbi Yose Omer, af haroseh mitnadeb shomer chinam. It's because just like in the Mishnah, someone who wants to volunteer to be a guard, he can, and then he donates whatever he guarded. So to here, a woman can donate a begadim of a kohen. However, Rabbi Yose, b'shem Rabbi Ilah, Rabbi Yose, the amora, defends the chachamim. Dibrei hakolhi, it could be all the opinions in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, what do they disagree about? Begufo shel korban, an actual thing, an animal or flower that you actually put on the mizbeach. But the incidentals, the other materials, korban yachid, the korban sibur. Everyone agrees that you can change from a korban yachid to a korban sibur. You can donate it, and it becomes part of the communal property. All right, good. So now we have two ways to explain the chachamim, and actually now we're going to challenge Rabbi Acha, who says that it's only the Rabbi Yose. So we're going to further defend the majority opinion. Here we have a baraita that challenges what Rabbi Yose said. Those families that donated the atzim, each one had a different day. That day would be a happy day for them. It would be like a Yom Tov. There was no fasting and no eulogies for those families. Rabbi Yose Omer, and nan hagin ela b'shat korban bilvad. Says it only applies during the times of the Bet HaMikdash. Then that's when there would be a holiday. But Chachamim say, whether it's a holiday, whether a time of the Korbanot, or even after the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, those are still considered holidays. So you see, according to this, that even Chachamim, who disagree with Rabbi Yose, admit that individuals can donate, and that's why you'd be celebrating all the time for them. So these donations are considered real donations. It must be because they are incidentals to the korban. Furthermore, this was one of the families that would donate every year. They would donate on the 10th of Av. That was their day. And one time when Tisha B'Av fell out on Shabbat, we don't fast Tisha B'Av on Shabbat, so they fasted on Sunday, which is the 10th of Av. So on the one hand, it's a fast day. On the other hand, it's a happy day for them. So they fasted almost the whole day. A few minutes before sunset, they broke their fast because they had to also show that it's a day of celebration. And so you see in this baraita that they actually did celebrate. Now they wouldn't break Tisha B'Av to celebrate a personal donation, only if it was a communal donation. And this was obviously after the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, because it seems like, all right, this is actually a good question. There's not so many sources about this. Did they fast on Tisha B'Av when the Bet HaMikdash was up? Second Bet HaMikdash, right? Why would they fast? The Bet HaMikdash is around. Well, they could still be mourning for the first Bet HaMikdash that was destroyed. But from here, it seems like the whole point of the proof is that it was specifically after the time of the Bet HaMikdash, and they were fasting because they still donated in all those years. Okay, Omer. So next topic is going to be: does the Omer that we cut? This is the barley that we cut on the second day of Pesach. Does that have to be from barley grown in Israel, or can it be imported from other countries? Maybe Ishmael is going to say yes, it has to be from Israel. Makes sense. You know, you're celebrating the produce of Israel. Sage is saying no, not necessarily. It's good to be from Israel, but you don't have any around, so you can import it. Okay, so let's analyze this machloket. Tanenan. We have a Mishnah in Masechet Menachot. So you can bring all animals that you can bring from within the land or outside the land. Min hadash, min hayashan, from the new produce or from last year's produce, if it's grain. Specifically, the Omer on Pesach. Those have to be from the new grain. Well, they have to be from, the whole point of them is that once we bring that Omer, now all the new grain from that has grown until then, now it becomes permissible, now it becomes Yashan. So, but that first one is going to be from Chadash. You can't use old grain from 2 years ago for the Omer. It has to be from this previous year, and it has to be from the land of Israel. Okay, so there you go. You have a braita that says it has to be from the land of Israel. Now, Rav Chuna b'shem Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Ishmael, Rabbi Ishmael Omer, and Omer ba min Hasuria. So this baraita must be the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael, because he says that you cannot bring the Omer from Syria or anywhere else. It has to be only from Israel. That's the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael. Taman Tanenan. There's Mishnah in Masechet Kelim that talks about the 10 levels of Kedusha, right? Going from Eretz Yisrael to Yerushalayim to Harabayit and so on. Eretz Yisrael mikudeshet mikol ha'arasot. In what way is Israel more holy than all other lands? That we bring the Omer. Omer means is a certain container size of barley and all the first fruits, and the Shekalim and Shavuot have to be from the land of Israel, not from any other land. So there you go. This is a Mishnah that says it has to be from Israel. This Mishnah also is the opinion of Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Ishmael Amar and Omer ba min Surya, Hasuria. Strange to put a hayid on the place name, Hasuria. Okay, Taman Tanenan, another Mishnah in Shevi'it. Rabbi Ishmael, here's Rabbi Ishmael himself, Omer, me harish reshut af kasir reshut. Yasa kasir ha'omer shehu mitzvah. It's talking about this pasuk in Shemot. Shesh temim ta'abod, remember shemi tishbot harish u'bakasir. The pshat of the pasuk is talking about Shabbat. You can work for 6 days. On the 7th day, stop working. What kind of work should you stop doing? Stop with the plowing and the harvesting, right? There's no agricultural work on Shabbat. But there's a parallel between Shabbat and Shavuot. Just like 6 days you work, and then 6 years you can work. On the 7th year, also no agricultural work. So Rabbi Ishmael is going to learn 2 things from here. The first thing he's going to learn is that, on Shabbat, when you stop doing and you don't do any harvesting, that's harvesting that you want to do, to shoot, but that is for your own business. But if it's for a mitzvah, then it's permitted to do. How could it be a mitzvah? Well, if 16th of Nisan falls out on Shabbat, then you have to go and cut the barley on the 16th, like I talked about the other day, right? So then you're going to violate Shabbat in order to cut the Omer on the 2nd day of Pesach. So even though the Torah says don't do any harvesting, that means personal harvesting. For mitzvah, it's permitted. Ishmael teaches that. Rabbi Ishmael keda'ateh. And what Rabbi Ishmael says over there applies also to something else he said. Rabbi Ishmael da'amar, en ha'omer ba min Surya. Keda'ateh da'amar yasa kesira omer, shehu mitzvah. And so this fits with what he says, that you cannot bring on the Shavuot year anytime. You cannot bring a Shavuot from outside the land of Israel. What are you going to do during a Shavuot year? Well, obviously, you're going to have to go and cut it within the land of Israel, which means you're going to have to violate Shavuot in order to bring to go Korban HaOmer. But that's totally fine. Just like you can violate Shabbat to cut the Omer, so too you can violate Shavuot to bring the Omer. So Rabbi Ishmael is consistent with his own opinion. Man tanna shomrei sefechin b'shavit notin tzechala mitrumat halishka. Rabbi Ishmael he. So now all the way back to our Mishnah that says that people that guard a patch of land for the Bet HaMikdash so that they can use it for all their grain offerings in the Shavuot year, and they get paid from Terumat HaLishka. Whose opinion is that? Would it be Rabbi Ishmael? Why? Because according to all the other sages, just import it from Syria. Right? There's no Shavuot law or anywhere outside. Shavuot law doesn't apply. You can import it, so that way you don't have to have guards and cut it on the Shavuot year. No, not necessarily. It could be everyone would agree to this law that you have to pay the guards. Because what if they don't find? What if there's no grain in Syria? Maybe there's a drought there or something. So we might have to rely on Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, everyone agrees that you should have guards, pay them from the temple, from the baskets, and that way we'll know we will have grain on the Shavuot year. Okay. Hahen Omer Mahu she'izra batechila. Okay, now that you're telling me I'm allowed to violate Shavuot in order to bring the Omer and Shtei Alechem, how about if I go and actually plant on purpose, plant barley and plant wheat, right? It's allowed just for the Bet HaMikdash, right? So can I do it lechatechila? Rabbi Chiya bar Ada ba'e komer Rabbi Mana lo nimsa kekomes al shirayim she'ena nechalin. So he says no, because this would be like, let's say you have flour that you can't eat for whatever reason. Maybe it became tameh. Right, so I brought a korban mincha and became tameh. I can't take some of the flour and put it on the mizbeach because I can't eat the rest of it. Right? Once it becomes inedible, I'm not allowed to donate to sacrifice part of it. So this would be the same thing. Because when you planted it during the Shavuot year, it's prohibited from anyone eating it. Since you can't eat it, you also cannot put it on the Mizbeach. So according to that, the answer would be no. However, he responds, in the Mishnah Pesachim, it lists 5 items where those are exceptions. And you can bring them, even though they're tameh, even though you cannot eat them because they're tameh, you're still allowed to sacrifice them on the Mizbeach. So this might be one of those 5. And then, therefore, it would be allowed according to that, which is amazing. You could actually plant during the Shavuot in order to guarantee that you'll have some barley for the Omer. Okay. Now, regarding the payment of these guards, how are we going to pay them? The problem is, we took these baskets and we're going to go and buy things with the baskets, animals and flour. So how does that work? When I take a coin, the coin has kedusha. When I give it to the farmer, the supplier, so then that kedusha goes onto the animal or onto the flour or onto the wine that I'm going to buy, and now that coin becomes chol. But the kedusha has to transfer onto something in order for that and for that money to go back into circulation. How does it work? If I hire guards, so if I just pay the guards directly with money, where does the kedusha go? There's nowhere for it to go. It doesn't go on the guard. It go on the guard's time. This has to be something tangible. How are we going to pay the guards with the money from the basket? Here's what we do. We borrow some money from the money changer. So that's just secular money, and we pay him. And we pay them. We pay them up front. And then once they barred and they cut the barley, so they give us the barley, and we take the money from the basket, and we say, okay, this money will transfer to the barley that we just cut, and then that money we take and pay the money changer back, and so that way we have an actual item. We want to pay the guys beforehand, before they do the work, because they want their money first, they're guarding it for a long time. You have to pay them along the way, and that way we can put it with the money. The kedusha can transfer onto something tangible. Now we ask, v'tavut can? Wait a second, can you really do that? It's not an equal amount. How much is the barley worth, right? Okay, $100. But now you pay this guy for for weeks and guard and all that. That might be $1,000. So it's not an equivalent amount, right? So can you really do that? Answer is yes. Whatever you end up paying, that will be the value of that barley. Don't go by the market value of, go buy a stock of barley from the market, because this is special barley, it has to be guarded and everything. So I'll say this barley is worth $1,000. That's why from whatever you paid the salary, that will be, we'll consider that the value of the barley now, which it is, because it took all that effort in order to guard it and ensure it would be done properly. Okay, similar discussion regarding stone workers, right? If you're repairing or building the Bet HaMikdash, and you have people working in the quarry hewing stones, so tanna fatiche avanim, they also get paid from the temple treasury, from those, right? How does it do it? Ken. כיצד הוא עושה? נותן מעות משולחני, ונותן לחוסבין ולסטטין עד שלא תינתן על גבי הדימוס. So we go to the money changer, we borrow money, and we give it to the stone cutters and the bricklayers before they're putting it on. And then when they bring the bricks, right when they're adding each row, we pick the money. We say the kiddusha of this money will go to the bricks, and that way we could take the money, give it back, and pay back the money changer. Question: can you really do that? The value of the bricks is not going to be the same as the value of all the labor that you put in. After, like the stone cutter, maybe he cut 100 stones on the way. 20% of them broke. So you can't use that to put the kiddusha on them. But nevertheless, you pay them for all that work. The payment is much more. So can you really do that? Answer is the same. Yes. Whatever you paid in salary, that is the value of the bricks, and so all of that gets transferred and is included in whatever bricks that are there. Okay, and now Amud Bet, we get to the next Mishnah. Para. We're going to list all kinds of things that you use the money for. First of all, the money, terumat halishka, means the money that we withdrew in the baskets, those 2-gallon baskets. There's also the leftover, whatever you didn't use that are in the baskets. There's also the leftover of the big containers that are in the treasury house, and the leftover of that, because we're going to see lots of different categories. Right? So this is the main one that we take with the basket. You use it for para aduma. You want to buy para aduma, and also the seir on Yom Kippur that you throw off the mountain or send into the desert. Even though these are not technically sacrifices, right? They're not going on the mizbeach. We're not burning them, eating them, blood, all that. We're not doing. Nevertheless, they're still communal needs, and therefore you use them. The lashon shel zorit, that goes back to the para aduma. The para aduma, you burn it together with hyssop and tolat shani. So that's this dye, red dye that you put on wool. This dye comes from these insects here that grow on trees. These are their eggs, so they're already a little red. And if you smash them up, you get a dye that looks just like this. If you boil it, you see that nice red. So that's how they got their red dye. Okay, so to buy that crimson wool, you use terumat halishka, even though it's not technically a korban. Kebesh para vekebesh saira mishtaleach. So the following things you're going to use from shiarei halishka. This comes from whatever is left over in the large container. After you take the baskets, the leftovers, you use it for the following things. The ramp for the para aduma. See, para aduma, you have to make sure it did not become tameh, and all the it can't, it's alive. So the kohanim, you have to make sure the kohanim don't become tameh. Now, anywhere in Israel, if you're walking, you never know if you're stepping on a grave. So they would build a special ramp that went from Hadabayit to Hadazetim. Harizatim is where they actually burnt Parah Adumah. So this special ramp that had arches and arches on tops of arches, so even if there were graves underneath, the tumah would not go up. So you build that ramp using the leftovers that are in the large containers. Also, the ramp for Seder Mishtaleach on Yom Kippur, that Sa'ir that was bearing all the sins. So the Talmud says that the Babylonians who came to Yerushalayim for Yom Kippur, they would want to send out the Seder Mishtaleach fast. So they would bother the Kohen who was taking it. They would pull out his hair to say, "Get faster, faster, get our sins out of here." So since they would harass him, had to make a tall ramp so that the people would not be able to reach him and annoy him. Okay, so building that ramp in order just to get out of Jerusalem until he got out to the desert. And Lashon Sheben Karnav, also the crimson wool that was tied between the horns of the Seder Mishtalech. Since he had two Salaries and you do the lottery, so to indicate which one, so you don't mix them up, which one's going to be Mishtalech, you tie a red string around its horns. That also is not the same Kedusha as the one for the Parah Adumah. The one for Adumah you actually burn with the Parah Adumah. So that one you use the main money from the baskets. This one is not burned, it's just an indicator, and so this is a lower level, only from the leftover money. Also, Matamaim, and an aqueduct to bring water into Jerusalem. It's important, that's not a korban. And the walls of the city and its towers, anything that you need for Jerusalem, you bring from the leftovers that are in the large containers. Why Jerusalem? Because any kadashim kalim you're allowed to eat in Jerusalem, like Korban Pesach. So therefore, that all has some level of kedusha and importance, but it's not actually a korban. So that's what you use the leftovers for. He just disagrees on one thing: that ramp that they would make for the Parah Adumah, so that they don't become tameh, it's for their own personal benefit, so they don't become tameh. So they should pay for that themselves, not from the communal funds. Okay, so this is the leftover of the leftover. After you took the baskets from the big container, and whatever was left in the big container you used for all the things we just mentioned above. If there's still some leftover money, what do you do with it? Ishmael says, reinvest it. Go and buy on the market wine and fine flour, and you'll keep it in a tahor place. And then whenever people come and they want to make their own korban and they want to buy wine and fine flour, they don't have to go and find it somewhere. They know in the Bet HaMikdash they have already supplied. And that way they can spend less money now and make more money later. So it's a profit maker too for the Bet HaMikdash. That's a good idea. The Akiva Omer and mistakirin b'shel ekdesh af lo mishel aniyim. Says no, we're not running a business here, right? This is the Bet HaMikdash. Who knows? But what if the price will go down and then you'll end up losing money? So no, we don't use Bet HaMikdash money for profit. Also, if people donate to give to the poor, you can't. It's not yours to reinvest and try to make money on, right? It goes to the poor. Okay, it's a good question nowadays. If a charity organization has surplus funds that they don't need right now, would they just leave it sitting in the bank account, or can they invest it? Okay, according to the Akiva, no. According to Ishmael, it would be permitted. Okay, now the money in the baskets that we took, so we buy all the communal offerings. What if there's money left in the baskets? So this is a higher level of kedusha, right? You can't just use it to build the walls. What do you do with it? They would buy golden plates to coat the walls of the Kodesh Kodashim, make it more beautiful. So I mean, that's certainly holy enough to use. The Ishmael Omer motar perot ha'is hamizbeach motar teruma lichle sharet. If you bought different produce, fruit with it, and anything extra from the fruit, you use motar perot. He probably means these things that you made money off of, right? You went and got wine and all that, and then people bought it, and now you have all that money that you just made. What do you do with all that money? Because obviously you didn't need it to buy korbanot in the first place. So you use it for kayitz, means like the end, or dessert, the dessert of the mizbeach. Whenever there's no one around and the mizbeach is idle, we don't want it to be idle. So we get extra korbanot and put them on the mizbeach. just like as like dessert, a little extra. So all that money that we made, we use for that. Motar teruma, and leftover of whatever other collections, we use it to buy sacred vessels, right? You need the pans and the cups and all that. Rabbi Akiva disagrees with Ishmael. Says motar teruma, the kaitzim is bayach. So he says motar teruma is not for kleshet, but that's for the extra offerings, the dessert offerings. Motar nesachim l'chlesharet, extra from the wine libations. Wine libation, you might buy extra, and then overflowing. You have extra stuff there. You use that to buy the vessels. Rabbi Chananya Segan Kohanim. Omer motar nechasim l'kaitzim mizbech, motar teruma l'chlesharet. This is the opposite of Rabbi Akiva. Right, the extra wine libations that's used for the dessert, for the mizbech, and the extra teruma that's used to buy temple vessels. Neither of these two sages have motar perot, because only the Ishmael permits buying and selling, using the money to reinvest. So the other two, they don't have this motar perot, so that's why they don't list it. Neither of them agreed with the extra produce that you'd buy and sell. That's the Mishnah. Okay. Gemara kevesh para. Now regarding the ramp, the Ishmael bar Nachman b'shem Rabbi Yonatan shalosh lashonot hen. No, not the ramp. After the ramp, we talked about the wool. There's actually 3 strips of crimson wool that were used for different needs, and they have different amounts. Shel sa'ir besela. The one, the seder mashtaleach, has to be worth a sela. Sela is 2 shekalim. Why do you need 2? Because when he gets to the edge of the mountain, he splits it in half. Half he ties to the horn, and half he ties to a rock. And then, then the Midrash says it would turn white after it went down. Okay, so he needs a longer piece, so that has to be worth 2 selah. Shel misora b'shekel. Misora also has to bring a piece of wool that he uses to sprinkle the blood of the bird of his korban. But that only needs one small piece. That's enough to be a shekel, half of a selah. Shel para, but the para duma has to be 2 selaim, double that of the semesh talech, because that you throw into the fire, right? El tov serefat para has to go down into the middle of the fire. So you need something that has a little bit more weight in order to go down and get burnt in it. Rabbi Chuniya dibrat Havrin, Rabbi Ba bar Zavda b'shem Rabbi Shimon ben Halafta. שהפרה בשתי סרעים ומכסה ואת דמפקין לשנה בעשרה זוז. So he disagrees and says the one for para aduma has to be not 2 but 2.5 selaim, which is equivalent to 10 zuz worth, same amount. Okay, he's using his teacher's exact language at 10 zuz. Zuz is a denomination used in Roman times. Some people think it comes from the word Zeus, right? Because these coins had Zeus on them, and that became the Hebrew word Zeus. Rabbi Yehuda b'shem Rabbi Shmuel, Talmidei Chachamim שמלמדים את הכהנים הלכות שחיטה, הלכות קבלה, הלכות זריקה, נוטלין שכרן מתרומת הלשכה. Because other people need to get paid also. They have the sages, right, who would teach the kohanim the laws of shechita, the laws of how to receive the blood, how to sprinkle the blood. I mean, you think the kohanim would know, but okay, someone has to teach them. You need people who are learned in the text to be able to teach them, and so you pay the salary of those teachers from terumat halishka. Now, terumat halishka literally means the money in the baskets. This doesn't make so much sense because the money in the baskets is really only used for the korbanot themselves. So even though it says terumat halishka, it seems to be referring to the leftover money in the large container. Rabbi Yitzchak bar Redifa b'shem Rabbi Imi mebakerem umekod kadashim. Also, those who are checking the kodashim, checking the animals to make sure they have no mum. You need people that are really specialists, like veterinarians, to know what to look for, and so they get also paid from. It must be. He means the large container. Rabbi Achar, Rabbi Tanchum bar Chia b'shem Rabbi Simlai. Magieh Sefer Hazara. Notin secharem mitzumat halishka. In the Bet HaMikdash, there was a Sefer Torah, a special Sefer Torah. This would be the master copy. And all of the copies would be checked based on this, because when scribes, copy, inevitably they're going to make mistakes, and then people are going to copy those. So how are you going to keep the text of the Torah perfect? Well, you have one perfect copy in the Bet HaMikdash, and that will check and recheck. And so you need people to do that. This is also the copy of the Sefer Torah that Kohen Gadol would use to read from when he needed to read the Sefer Torah. So those scribes also get paid for by the temple funds that people gave for machazit shekel. There were two judges in Jerusalem who dealt with all cases of stealing, all thefts, and they are paid for by this from the same fund. Terumat Lishka. Again, it means the large collection. Shmuel Amar Nashim Orgot Beparochet Notin Sechalim Mitrumat Lishka. Abchuna Amar Mitrumat Bedek Habayit. Women who weave the curtain, the parochet. Right? So they also have to get paid. Some say Terumat Lishka. Over here, it actually might mean the Machasita Shekel funds, whatever, somewhere. And the second opinion says no. Bedek Habayit. Bedek Habayit is a separate fund altogether. If I say, I donate my cup to the Bet Mikdash, I don't have to donate the actual cup, I donate the value. That goes to the general maintenance of the Bet Mikdash. So the question is, parochet, is it part of the building structure? If it's part of the building structure, then it goes from the general maintenance fund. But the parochet sometimes gets blood sprinkled on it, right? So those times, you see, it's actually part of the service. So it's almost it's something holy. So according to the first opinion, we're focusing on it as like a klei sharet. According to the second opinion, we're treating it as part of the temple structure. Right? Shmuel says it's like a korban itself, an offering, and therefore would be from Terumat Lishka. Second opinion is like it's part of the temple, part of the building, and therefore from Bedek Habayit. Amar Rabbi Chia Tanna, Rabbi Yehuda, good gadot. הכתורת בכל קורבנות הציבור באים מתרומת הלשכה. מזבח הזהב וכל כלי שיט באים ממותד נכסים. Okay, so all the ketoret also, we didn't mention the ketoret, all those spices and all animals for communal sacrifices, that comes from the baskets that we use to withdraw from the machasita shekel. The mizbach hazahav, right, the one that's in the kodesh we use for ketoret, so that buying or improving that itself, and any temple vessels that we use the motan nechasim, the leftover that's in the motan nechasim is when we buy wine. If we have any leftover from wine that we use, we can use that for mizbach hazav klei sharet. Mizbach haolah, that's the big mizbach outside that for animals. V'hechal azarot, and the courtyards of the Bet HaMikdash itself. So that comes from the leftover that's in from the machasita shekel, the leftover that's in the treasury. Anything that's outside the Bet HaMikdash walls itself for the rest of Harabayit, that comes from Bedek Habayit, from the general funds for the general maintenance. Okay. Okay, so now that was a braita. We're going to have now a few sources that contradict what we just said. Before that, we have just a question on this. We have a braita that says the actual bricks of the altar and the sanctuary and the courtyards. If you take a brick, take it home, right? And you're going to use it to sit on at home. No, you violate me'ilah. Well, how could you can violate me'ilah? If you say you buy it from shirayim, if you buy it from the leftovers, only in the baskets that you take, that is used for kodesh kodashim, and therefore that you would violate me'ilah if you take it. But whatever is left is not kodesh kodashim and does not violate me'ilah, and that's what's used to buy the bricks for all these things. So you shouldn't violate me'ilah if it's used with that money. So it must be this follows Bimeir we saw yesterday, because Bimeir said ma'alin b'shirayim, the leftovers, you do violate me'ilah for the leftovers. Amar b'chiyah kilum, amar Bimeir ela b'toch shenato, hachachus shenato anan kaimin. No, that doesn't work either, because Bimeir only said that's within 1 year. If you buy things with that leftover money, that leftover money is still considered for 1 year me'ilah, because you might still need more for the baskets, right? If you have to buy more animals. So since you might need it, that's why. But after 1 year, now next year's machasita shekel is coming in, then you don't need it anymore. Now those bricks are more than a year old, so it shouldn't be me'ilah. So that does not answer the question. So really, it doesn't make sense. We're gonna scratch that. If you take the brick home, it's not good. You shouldn't do that. You're stealing. That's not me'ila. The biyuda good niyot. I saw him before. Shochan, the menorah mizbechot, the parochet, makebin, et hakorbanot, ibrer b'meir, according to b'meir. If you want to bring a korban, you need to have all the temple vessels there. Right? You need the shochan, menorah, both mizbechot and the parochet. If you don't have all those, you cannot bring a korban. Chamim say, no, you don't need all those things. All you need is the kiyor and the kan and the base of it. Because the kohanim come and they have to wash their hands, and that's also found in the courtyard where the mizbeach is also. So that's what you need for a korban. If you have a time period in history where you don't have a menorah, you don't have anything that's inside, okay, you can still bring the korbanot as long as you have the wash basin. Okay, that's much more mekil. Okay, now now we're going to have a bunch of questions on this. ולא כן למד רבי אליעזר רבי יוסי בן חנינה, תראהון אמרין, כל הן דכתיב נוכח מעכב, סלע אינו מעכב. In the Torah, when it lists all the different temple vessels, sometimes it says it has to be nochach, like with the menorah, has to be opposite the table. So that has to be there in order to bring korbanot. If something that says sela off to the side, like the shulchan, so that you don't need to be there. Anything that needs to be right there in front, that needs to be there. So this disagrees with Chachamim, because Chachamim say you don't need any of these. Amar Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman b'shem Rabbi Yochanan, afilu sela ma'akev. He says even like the shulchan that says has to be on the side, it's required. Amar Rabbi Ila b'shem Rabbi Shmuel bar Nachman, afilu sima ma'akev. Anything that says you have to put it there, sima, right, including the curtain, the base, and everything has to be there in order to bring a korban. So you see, all these opinions disagree. Amar Rabbi Chanina kan ba'avodot shebifnim, kan ba'avodot shebachutz. No, we can reconcile all these when you're talking about avodot bifnim. Any avodah that you have to do inside, like you do on for the ketoret and so on. Those, if it has to be done inside, you need all the vessels that are inside to be there. But if you're talking about bringing an animal sacrifice, that's done outside. Then you need all the outside vessels to be there. So each one is a separate thing. As if you have only the outside vessels, the mizbeach, and the large mizbeach, and the sink and the kiyar, then you can bring outside korbanot, but nothing inside. If you want to do inside things, they need all the inside vessels to be there. And that way, now we've reconciled all the different opinions. Baruch Adonai, Olam, Amen, Amen.